Okay. We are live, guys. So people might join within the call. So, and then I'll edit all this out when I post it.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Between Sessions Podcast. I'm Ebony Harris.
And I'm Elisa Bokeen. And we are two brown chicks changing the face of therapy on both sides of the couch.
Welcome back. We skipped last week because I had an emergency I had to take care of, but we're back. And actually today you'll get a YouTube and you'll get a Facebook Live. So if you're catching us right now, in 2 hours, we have a whole other show. So you get 2 for 1 this week. And we appreciate the flexibility of our guests. Today we have Ms. Zeahlot Lopez, the infamous is bad, but I'm off the high. Me and her both spoke at a conference this past weekend in LA, and it was amazing, and Z was amazing. And so I'm excited that you're on the show this week from Vida Therapy. So we really appreciate you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you, Ebony. Thank you, Elisa.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah, and Elisa didn't get to meet you in person, but I was telling her, like, she is so funny. She's so cool. Like, I was letting her know that I was obsessed with the way you spoke to the crowd. I was right behind her, so I was like, oh, my God, this is going to be the one. Because she did so good. But tell everybody about your practice and who you serve.
Wonderful. Thank you for asking. So to begin with, I definitely vibe with it. I am a dope therapist. I think that speaks volumes just as a woman of color and as a Latina therapist. So my practice is Vida Therapy, and I opened up private practice January of this year, and it's popping. It is booming. I have a full caseload, and I usually work with young professionals working on the I before the we. So y'all know how much the divorce rate is going up, right? Mm-hmm. And second marriages are at about 80% divorce rate. So my biggest thing is catching it before it happens, working on the I before it becomes a we. So that's one of the biggest things I love to work with. So I have a lot of men, especially men of color in my practice. I'm just manifesting it. They come in, they tell me about the wives, the girlfriends, sometimes both. So that is what I'm working on, as well as Latino family units. I thoroughly believe that within one person is an entire family. So I am not scared of having the grandma up in the room, the sister, the mama, everybody who's taking care of that child, because that's what matters. The tribe raises a child.
That's awesome. That's very awesome. And I wanted to highlight the fact that you have your goal, or it seems that you have been able to build a practice with working with mainly minorities. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes. 85% of my clients are minorities.
That's awesome. And so I feel like that's a big point to make, because we talk about this a lot within our group, but even just with other therapists of color, it's that struggle of, I want to serve my communities, but then what does that mean as a private pay therapist? And what does that mean when I'm going into businesses? I mean, I have to take insurance and Medicaid and all those things. Does that mean I could do private pay? Like, how does that work for me when I know that sometimes our communities don't have access or don't understand or may not have the finances to cover private practice? So how did you come to terms with the way that you were going to run your practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I actually had that posed to me the minute I got licensed. So I was working in a community-based setting, right? I was county, I was Department of Mental Health. And we all know, like, that's a whole battle in itself, just the system. And I worked for 3 years there. So I know what it's like to go to clients living in the life, going to Arby's, going to Mickey D's, meeting them out in the field. If they're homeless, they ain't got a home. So I told myself, Z, when you get out, create something that's going to provide a service to the minorities, to the communities of color that are underrepresented, but in a different way. I am tired of DMH telling me how I need to serve them, how many sessions they get, and where. So what I made a pledge to do is to do 30-30-30. And what I mean by that is 30% of my practice is low fee scale. I will drop it low. I will drop it like it's hot. But I will make it happen with the price. And I always ask the question, look, you trying to roll through at least once a week. What can you afford? Mm-hmm. And that question opens up so much conversation. Look, Z, I'm trying to get right. I'm trying to live good for my babies. This is what I could afford a week. And I work with it because that's the population I thrive off. The other 30% is full fee, no negotiation. This is what it is. And they stay. Well, not surprisingly, but a lot of people that say, okay, you know what? You speak Spanish, you understand the culture, you get me, I'm down. There's no conversation about it. They're open to it. The other 30% is what I work with insurance, meaning I don't take insurance, I don't take government, fire department, no police, nothing. Straight cash pay, no checks accepted. With them, I say, okay, what's your copay? What can you afford out of pocket that won't put you in a bad situation, but you still getting help? And for them, I provide a super bill. I give them their receipt, they take it to their insurance company, and then I advocate for them and I help them get reimbursed as much as possible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like the way that you were able to separate it, because it allows you to have this diverse clientele where you feel like you really are helping everyone. And I know Elisa does something similar where Elisa, you've joined twice. Elisa does something similar where she has a scholarship. You want to explain a little bit about that, Elisa?
Yeah, so it's very similar to what you're saying. I think sometimes the misconception is that, and that's part of the work that we're doing, is that our communities don't value, healing, right? It's just a matter of, do they value it the way that it's being presented to them, right? And that's what we're all doing, right, is we're giving them another option. So when people do come to me or they refer to me who, for whatever reason, I mean, we've all had those situations where life kicks us in the ass, and finances may be one of those things that it affects. So basically what my commitment to healing program is, if you're invested in this work, and you're going to do the work inside and outside of therapy, then I'll work with you on that. We'll have a certain amount of sessions at a lower fee, and you're going to be doing your work, and then we're going to revisit where you're at, like after 4 sessions, where are we with your progress? Do you still need the support that you need? Do we need to revise it? But yeah, it's a matter of people being invested in their own healing is such a big part of this process. And if you're invested, I'm invested, right? So that's what it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about how you came into becoming a therapist, right? Because you had a journey that wasn't like straight out of high school, I want to be a therapist and that's what I'm going to do. You kind of found your way in therapy and decided that's what you should do because you were already kind of doing it. So can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So, people always be saying like a bartender, a barber, a cosmetologist is already a therapist. And I have to agree 100% because y'all know when you go get your hair done, when you go get a fade, when you go get a press and curl, you're opening up your soul. You're telling them like, girl, this is what happened this week. This is how it's going. And I've been a hairdresser. I've been a licensed cosmetologist for 13 years. And in doing people's hair, doing their makeup, getting them ready for the wedding, I realized, I was like, wait a minute. They are buying me. They're not buying the product or the service. And it's the conversation we're having. Like, how did you meet your husband? How do you know it's the one? What dynamics do you guys have? And I learned after a while, I was like, I need to take my butt back to graduate school and I need to do this. So I did. So I took ship. I was working for MAC Cosmetics. I was working in the shop and I didn't necessarily leave because I still do it on my side hustle, but I left it full time to go back to school and just go for it. And more than ever inside my life, I feel that I am in alignment and purpose with what it is I'm doing. I feel so much joy doing this work.
I love what you just said about that, because Eboni and I have had this conversation a lot, is, kind of what can happen, I think in a lot of, in all industries, not just in the mental health field, but this kind of scarcity mindset where it's like, this competition, so to speak. And I think particularly with therapists, it's just like what you said, people were coming to you as you, right? Like there's a lot of people doing hair, there's a lot of people doing makeup, right? That do wonderful work, but they were coming to you because of that connection that they had with you. And I think that's the part that often gets missed in our field, especially when you're going into private practice, because it's scary, right? And not, we don't always have that business background, is that connection that the clients are making with you is really like key to the whole process.
Yeah. So you had already had that first skill of building a relationship with your clients.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's any more, like there's two things that make you intimate and vulnerable, and that's physical space, but also emotional space.
Right.
And for a woman to let me, like she trusts me on her wedding day to get her all bomb and glammed up, brows on fleek, that's so important, because if she's walking down that aisle, she needs to look her best times 10. And for that's the same vulnerability that a person has to say, you know what, this is the first time I'm crying in front of anybody. I have had men, Black men in my sessions cry. And they're just like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I can't be doing this. And I'm like, this is the space to do it.
Right.
That's the type of vulnerability that I'm able to create and provide.
Right. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your experience or what struggles you've seen growing up as a first generation Latina, and you're also bilingual. So what are some struggles that you saw growing up, or that you think first generation children have?
You know, the first thing that pops in my mind anytime I'm asked this question is I remember we're two, it's me and my sister, and just my mother taking us to Burger King and scrounging to the bottom of her purse, just trying to see if she had enough for one Happy Meal, like one kid's meal, not two. There was two of us. So me and my sister had to decide between sharing the toy and the fries or the burger and the drink. And it's a reality. And I didn't realize this was a thing until I grew up and I saw other families that weren't struggling like that. And I come from a two-parent household. I do have both my parents. Their story is that they came here undocumented. So my mother didn't have residency until I was born. And that's so important for me to realize, because I can connect with my clients and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm not ICE. I'm not trying to take your babies. I'm not trying to deport you. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to provide a service for you to work out your trauma. So it's important for me to see a part of me in the client, and the client a part of me.
You bring up such a good point that we've talked about in the past, is why sometimes our communities, you know, especially, you know, the Latinx community, there's this apprehension, especially now with the climate, with the political climate, right? That I think historically there's a fear of the system, because the system is not set up for us, right? And so that fear, I think, has contributed to our communities getting help, right? Like going out to seek somebody because they wonder, like, are you documenting this? Who are you going to report it to? How does all that work? I think you're making a great, you know, highlighting that point.
Right. It is very important that they feel safe when they do seek that help.
And that we reframe and, again, continue this conversation. That's not what therapy is. I always go back to Dr. Manuel, right? And reshaping it and what that looks like and what our communities come to understand it to be.
Right. Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone that's thinking about going into the mental health field? You come from a different field of cosmetology and decided that therapy is what you were meant to do. So if somebody's thinking about, is this something I should do? What would you say the first steps they should be to figuring out if this is something they should be doing?
I always ask this. When I was 17, my father, he sat me down and he says, look, baby girl, he goes, do not do anything ever because you are like scrounging or really, really needing the money. Do it because you love it. Your mother and I did not come to this country and struggle as much as we did for you to be doing some mediocre work. So the best advice I would give anybody is truly sit yourself down, be honest with yourself, and ask, if the world was perfect and you didn't need money, would you still choose this career? Would you still choose this path? And if the answer is yes, go full-hearted into it. You're going to sweat, bleed, and cry over this. You will come up on some struggles. And if the answer is no, walk away. Don't walk, but run away from this. Because money is not the all answer too.
Right. Eliza, what's your answer to that question? I'm curious.
I'm what advice would I give somebody going into this field?
Because you also, this is a second career for you.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I completely agree, you know, and it's very similar to that. I think one of the biggest fears going into this field is it's not really presented as you're going to even be able to pay your student loans back. Right. And I do believe wholeheartedly that when you follow your passion, that's what I tell my own kids all the time. Figure out what you love to do. That's what your job is as a kid. Figure out what you love to do, what makes your heart sing, what expands it. Then figure out how to make money at it, right? Because if you love this, then that's going to be the driving force that you need in order to, if you're going into private practice, you're going to need it, right? Because it'll probably bring you to your knees,
right?
And more often than not. But I'm very similar to that. If you love this work, then get the support. Get really good mentors. Get really good mentors, not just in the mental health field, but business mentors, right? Like, you're going to go into private, because this is still a business, and that's okay. That's okay. What's the saying? Like, the good guys need to be making the good money too, right? So we can be good in the world.
No, yeah, definitely. I would say mine would be just to be open. I think I was so caught up in like the route I wanted to go into mental health, because this is something I've always wanted to do. I was so focused that I'm going to be a psychologist. I'm going to be a psychologist, that even when things were getting thrown in my way saying like, no, that's not what you need to do. I was in New Orleans for Hurricane Katrina. My professors didn't come back, so I didn't have a way to write recommendations. When I was here, my dad was sick. Like, all these things that were kind of getting in my way of being able to go to a PhD program, and I'm still in my head like, no, that's what I'm doing. No, that's what I'm doing. And really understanding the different routes that you can take to get into mental health. There are so many options for you to be able to help people in this field, and so being a little bit more open about that, and kind of along the same line as you're saying, Elisa, like, understand that there is an opportunity for abundance and prosperity when you're in mental health. It's just about the way that you look at it and how you want to move within it. So,
and that it's okay for you to want that too.
Yeah, that is fine. You don't have to dedicate your life to poverty just because you decide to go into mental health.
Ooh, I mean, people get heated around that topic. I've seen, other Facebook groups, and somebody, like, it's such a taboo topic. I think in our field, the idea of how that looks like. And I mean, we get it, right? Like, that's part of why we're doing what we do, so more people can have access to us, right? And how we get, and so that's a great example, what the way that you highlighted it, of what practitioners can do within their own practice to make it accessible for people and still pay your rent on time.
Girl needs some manicure money for sure.
She's like, it's okay for me to want to keep myself together and take care of myself and be able to pay my bills. I should be able to do both.
Yeah, more people with this excitement that we have in the field, because that's where the creativity comes from. Right? Like, you don't want people who are mad that they got to go to work. Like, you want to have. So yes, I think this allows us to come up with more creative ways, like Melanin and mental health, like the program that you have, so I think that's a part of the work that we're doing too, is to reframe how we see this field, this industry, this business.
Absolutely. And how we can impact others. You ladies being out there in Texas, I live in a cave because I do my thing and I stay in my lane. But I remember watching the border separations with, all the Latino families that were coming through, and I just cried. I cried on my couch for hours. And I thought to myself, what could I do? I could send money. That's temporary. I could go. That's temporary. So I created the Vida Therapy Pro Bono program. And what I decided to do is I put a shout out and I said, for anyone that is impacted by the borders, here's the application. I'm going to have family or individuals apply. And sure enough, the moment I made a pact with my higher power, and I call it God, for me to always have a pro bono client on deck in my practice, my phone would not stop ringing with full fee clients.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really awesome. I think that's it's a clear way of being able to do both. And so for anybody that's struggling with that, like, well, I don't want to be all private pay, and sometimes even the belief that you can be all private pay, but is that what really works for you and for your desires as a clinician? And so if it's not, then that's fine. Focus on, this is what I'm comfortable with. And so if it is 50%, 50%, or 30, 30, 30, or 33, 33, 33, I guess, if that's what it is, then that's perfectly fine. Like, but you just have to be honest with yourself and who you are as a person and as a clinician, and how do you marry those two? And I think that's what you're a good example of, Z. So what is your favorite resource, book, podcast, something that you feel like others can learn from?
I'm huge on reading. I'm a bookworm for sure. You can find me at the library. I love reading. So one of my absolute favorite books is The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz. Not only, yes, right? I love it. so much to the I before the we. There cannot be an us if you don't know who you are and fullness in your own self-love. I am strong on the self-love. I love it. And it's such an easy read that you just kind of flip through it with no problem. So that's my favorite resource. Among others, I have an entire resource page of books on my website. And you can just click through and find whatever works for the person.
Love it.
Okay. So what makes you a dope therapist?
My year-round tan, girl. That's exactly what makes me a dope therapist. And let me tell you why. It's so funny. So I'm Latina. My name is Jewish. My first name, right? Zeahlot. But I look Persian. I look Middle Eastern. So it's a whole kind of mess. People be like, is Lopez your married name? Is it your daddy's name? Like, they don't even know. So
I was wondering about the
right. And my first language is Spanish. So I didn't speak English until I got to the school system because at home it was nothing but Spanish. So what makes me a dope therapist is that clients that are looking for healing, looking for an opportunity to be vulnerable can look at me and be like, girl, you got a tan, I got a tan, and it's year round. It's a beautiful thing. Black and brown is beautiful. So that is what's represented. Beauty outside of the norm for society. That's what makes me a dope therapist.
And I've been following you since you started. And I remember like when I first saw like your social media, I was like, who is this woman? Like, I want that couch. Is what
yes, girl, Amazon. Yes.
You really got that on Amazon?
I did.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. Ebony, Amazon.
Right, I know. Now we're gonna have an office full of Amazon. But no, I think that's important. I feel like you were very strategic, and we've talked about this personally. You were very strategic about when you decided to start your practice, that you had everything in order before you started because you knew that there was going to be a grind, but you wanted to get that out the way and get everything in order so that once it started, you could focus on serving your clientele. And I think you did a really good job of that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I have to say this for anybody that's looking to open up private practice. I started my private practice a year before I got licensed. And let me explain why. I got ready because I knew when I got licensed, I was going to hit the ground running. I got a business coach a year before I got licensed. My therapist, probably 2 years before. Why? Because you need that support team, just like Eliza said. If you don't have that, you're going to drown. So I didn't drown. I had floaties. I had everything. So when I hit the pool, laps, just like Michael Phelps.
With the floaties.
Yes. So tell us how you're working to change the mental health game for minority communities. What are you doing?
What am I looking to do? This is what really speaks to my heart. Because I was in DMH, I was in county for 3 years. I want to provide something when I'm able to supervise in a year to supervisees to have an option, not just to go to county, not just to go to burnout and just be a little hamster wheel. Productivity. I want them to actually work with the community, but in quality, not quantity. Right? That is so important. So I'm looking to change the game and providing another third option, not a private practice that doesn't reflect who they are as a minority or a person of color, but a minority-owned business that is serving the community in the best quality capacity.
Awesome. Awesome. And last question, why is therapy dope?
Therapy is dope because it allows me to be more naked than I've ever been in my life. I've gotten this question a couple times, like, oh, Z, what's the most vulnerable or naked you've ever been? In the sacred space. My soul goes so deep, deeper than the ocean. And my therapists have been so amazing to let me be me in there. I have never felt so much more heard and seen than in there. That is it for me.
Absolutely.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Let everybody know how to find you, how to follow you on social media.
Okay, perfect. So my social media handle across the board is Vida Therapy, VIDA Therapy. Vida in Spanish means life. And if life isn't therapy, girl, I don't know what is. So it's IG, it's Facebook, it's YouTube, Vida Therapy, across the board.
Okay. And then your website is vidatherapy.com?
.co, not .com.
Okay, .com.
Yeah, I couldn't afford the M, so I went with the .co. Yeah.
All right, we'll make sure to have all of that in the show notes, including her favorite resource, which is Mastery of Love. We really appreciate you joining us. As far as Melanin and Mental Health, make sure you follow us across social media at Melanin and Mental Health, on Twitter at Melanin Health, and go to melaninandmentalhealth.com to check out the directory, which Miss Z is on there as a dope therapist.
Right.
And so we appreciate that, of course. So check out the directory. If you have not signed up. Now is the time. Make sure that you go sign up for the directory. We're getting so much attention to it. Even just in my trip to LA, like there was so much interest and so many people that want to work with us and want to see, this directory thrive because they're looking for you. So check it out. And also we've added more shirts to melaninandmentalhealth.com. Go to the shop button and you'll see the different shirts that we've added there as well.
The Black therapists exist, Latinx therapists exist. We just got the My Therapist is Black, My Therapist is Latinx on there yesterday. So yes,
check it out. And at the end of this month, I should really know this date by heart by now, but I don't. I believe it's in 2 weeks. I am doing a webinar on Private Practice 101. So basically the basics of private practice. If you've ever thought about private practice, if you're in private practice, but you're not 100% sure on what direction to go, check out this webinar. I'm going to be talking about it from beginning to end, from starting your private practice to how you grow into a thriving private practice. Okay. So check that out. Sorry, what'd you say?
October 22nd.
October 22nd. That is the day. So check it out. It's on melaninandmentalhealth.com /events. Also, we have it across our social media where you can register for it. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be dope. So check it out. We're going to have so many resources for you to help you make your practice a little bit easier. Okay. So I think that's it. Is there anything else?
One more thing.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Yes. I'm going to go all through this again in an hour, but on October 29th, so 1 week after Ebony's events, we are going to be part of an event. There is a documentary. KOG Speaks is going to be having a documentary at University of Houston downtown. Go Gators! That's where I got my undergrad. But the documentary is I Am You, Dimensions of Diversity. She's going to be touching on the topics of mental health, on sexual trauma in the military. And so afterwards, there's also going to be a panel, and Ebony and I will be serving on there. So we're really, really excited. Get your tickets for that. We're going to put a link in the show notes for that. And we got a lot more that we'll talk about later because...
And it is Mental Health Awareness Week.
Yes.
It is Mental Health Awareness Week. Okay. We always have a lot at the end of the show. We probably should start doing this at the beginning of the show because we always have like, this is going on, this is going on. But we appreciate everyone that is listening and or watching. And we will talk to you guys next week.
Thank you, Z.
Thanks, Z.
Welcome. See you guys.